In this film, we explore three unusual places in the landscapes of southwestern Germany. The volcanic hill of the Calverbühl near the village of Dettingen under Erms. The narrow limestone fissures known as the Hellholes not far away. And the Chapel of Wurmlingen, standing on a hill with a settlement history stretching back thousands of years, nestled in a terrain that has long stirred the imagination of dragons. Each of them tells a different story, shaped by geology, history, and the quiet presence of the land. From the steep edge of the Swabian Alb, the view opens across the valley of the Erms River. Among the gentle hills of the foreland, a striking cone rises from the landscape, the Calverbühl. This solitary hill is the remnant of an ancient volcanic vent formed about 17 million years ago when molten rock rose from deep beneath the earth and solidified here. At the summit, a solitary linden tree crowns the hill. The rocks of the Calverbühl contain magnetic minerals, and measurements have revealed a noticeable geomagnetic anomaly. Lightning strikes, frequent on this exposed hill, may even have strengthened this magnetism over time. The valley of the Erms River below has been inhabited since prehistoric times, and distinctive hills like this have long served as landmarks in the landscape. Until the Reformation in 1534, a small chapel stood on the summit of the Calverbühl. Each year, on April 25th, St. Mark's Day, the people of Dettingen walked up the hill in a procession, praying for protection and fertile fields. Today, the chapel has disappeared, but the linden tree remains, a tree that in Germanic tradition was associated with love, fertility, wisdom, and justice. In folklore, it was sometimes linked to protective female deities and to older traditions of reverence for the nurturing powers of the earth, and often served as a place where communities gathered. Not far from the Calverbühl, the character of the terrain begins to change. As the path climbs higher along the hillside, the first limestone walls appear beside the trail, silent hints that the mountain here is slowly breaking apart. These formations mark the approach to the Hellholes. Over long periods of time, the slope has slowly shifted. Tension within the limestone caused the rock to crack and separate, creating deep fractures in the hillside. Walking further along the path, the terrain suddenly narrows. Rock walls rise on both sides, as if the mountain had been split open. Here, the process becomes visible. The hillside is gradually pulling apart, leaving behind narrow corridors of stone. Soon the path enters the main fissures of the Hellholes. Towering rock walls close in, and cool air lingers between the stones. These formations are not caves, but fractures, the result of slow geological movement that continues almost imperceptibly to this day. The name Hellholes likely refers to their dark, narrow appearance and the cold air that often flows from the depths of these clefts. One might also wonder whether the name Hellholes held another meaning. In several places, caves lead deep into the mountain. Dark openings like these have long stirred the human mind. It is easy to imagine that people once approached them with a sense of unease, wondering what might dwell in the depths below. South of the town of Rottenburg, another remarkable hill rises above the landscape. At its summit stands the Chapel of Wurmlingen, visible for miles across the Neckar Valley. Officially, the building is known as the Chapel of St. Remigius. The present structure was built in the late 17th century, but archaeological finds suggest that the hill had already attracted people long before that time. Discoveries from the early Bronze Age have been reported here, and traces of activity from Roman and Merovingian periods have also been noted. Signs that this prominent height has drawn human attention for thousands of years. Even the name Wurmlingen, the village lying at the foot of the Chapel Hill, invites curious associations. In Old German, the word Wurm could refer not only to a serpent, but also to a dragon. The same ancient root survives in the English word worm, a small linguistic trace of how such creatures once lived in the imagination. Seen from above, the long ridge of the hill has sometimes been compared to the shape of a resting dragon, an image that seems almost fitting for a place with such a name. A path winds slowly up the hillside toward the chapel. Along the way, the Stations of the Cross mark the ascent. Shrines and crucifixes stand quietly by the wayside, testaments to generations of believers who once climbed this hill. Two pilgrimage routes, the Way of St. James and the Via Sancti Martini, also pass through here. Halfway up the slope lies the cemetery of Wurmlingen. Archaeological excavations have revealed that the whole hilltop around the chapel once formed an extensive burial field, with graves layered meters deep into the soil. For centuries, perhaps for far longer, this hill seems to have served as a place where the dead were laid to rest. The first church on this hill likely dates back to the 11th century, probably as a simple Romanesque structure. The building seen today dates from around 1685. Beneath it lies a dark and quiet crypt. Standing in this shadowed space, one might wonder whether the early medieval chapel was truly the first sacred structure here, or whether this prominent height had already been regarded as holy long before Christian walls were raised.